dans cette analyse.
Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to guide you through today's explainer because we're looking at something that sits right at the intersection of fundamental human rights and cutting-edge technology. We are exploring how artificial intelligence is actually stepping up to solve a truly heartbreaking challenge in the French educational system. We're talking about the inclusion of students with learning disabilities. And to really get a grip on this, we're going to let the data from the 2025 Go Student Education Report tell the story.
23%. I just want you to let that number sink in for a second. According to UNA-PAIA data from 2023, an incredible 23% of children with special educational needs in France were entirely excluded from school. Literally, almost a quarter of these kids had absolutely zero access to the educational system. It's a staggering statistic, right? It really forces us to confront a massive systemic crisis. We are leaving a huge portion of our youth completely behind.
So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the challenge of inclusion, move on to the obstacles in school, and then look at how AI can actually help. After that, we'll cover some existing AI tools, talk about rethinking school evaluation, and finally wrap up with the vision of education for all.
Okay, let's dive right into this first part, the challenge of inclusion.
To understand the solution, we first absolutely have to understand the sheer scope of this challenge. And the numbers, they are huge. Neurodevelopmental disorders currently affect 1 in 6 children. Think about that classroom dynamic. We're looking at 5 to 10% of students dealing with dyslexia, another 5 to 7% with dyspraxia, and roughly 5% diagnosed with ADHD. All in all, for the 2024 school year, there are 490,000 disabled students in the French system who are struggling with specific cognitive disorders that completely change how they process information.
Which brings us to Section 2, Obstacles in School. And this brilliantly illustrates the core of the problem. With nearly 500,000 students needing specific cognitive support, the system is hitting some major drop-offs. Look at this. In primary school, about 65% of students with disabilities are included in the standard system. That's a start. But by the time they reach secondary school, that number literally plummets by more than half, dropping to just 32%. You might be wondering why the huge drop? Well, despite the fact that France has mobilized 132,000 aides, known as ASEH, to accompany these students, a massive 85% of teachers report feeling inadequately trained to actually support them. So, the human intent is definitely there, but the structural support just isn't. Which leads directly to this truly shocking statistic: 0.
Right now in France, there are exactly 0 adapted textbooks available in an easy-to-read format designed specifically for DYS students. So that's kids facing dyslexia, dyspraxia, and dysphagia. 0. And to make matters worse, less than 8% of available educational books are transcribed into Braille. The physical and pedagogical materials are just fundamentally structurally unadapted for these kids.
So, what do? That leads us to Section 3, how AI can help. This is exactly where our narrative shifts from frustration to actual empowerment. Where the traditional infrastructure falls short, AI is stepping in. And I'm not talking about AI as some flashy gimmick, but as a highly targeted, absolutely crucial accessibility tool. For kids with dyslexia, AI dynamically adapts the reading pace and visual presentation on the fly. For ADHD, it provides individualized routines and contextual reminders to gently pull their focus back. For students on the autism spectrum, social robots provide predictable, safe interactions. And for those with dyspraxia, predictive typing completely bypasses the physical hurdle of manual writing. It's a real game changer.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, existing AI tools. Because these aren't just theoretical pie-in-the-sky concepts. They are concrete tools actively bridging the educational gap right now. For instance, we have Mathia, which is this incredibly smart educational AI robot using voice recognition to give real-time feedback for kids with dyscalculia or ADHD. Then there's Mia Seconde, a chatbot designed to simplify complex text for DY students, which is actually slated for a massive national rollout in France in 2025. And for visual impairments, Microsoft has a fantastic free app called Seeing AI that literally describes text and objects out loud, granting these students immediate autonomy. The tech is already here.
But that brings up another huge point, covered in Section 5, Rethinking School Evaluation. See, equipping these kids with advanced tools is really only half the battle. If we teach them using adaptive technology but then turn around and test them using the same old rigid methods, the system is still failing them entirely. Currently, 41% of teachers believe traditional exams only test memory, which heavily disadvantages atypical students. And honestly, parents agree. 59% feel these grades just do not reflect their child's true abilities. Conversely, an overwhelming 74% of professors believe that AI-assisted evaluation, like simulation-based assessments, would accurately and fairly measure the true capability of all students.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this powerful sentiment from the educators actually on the front lines. According to the 2025 Go Student Study, 58% of teachers estimate that access to AI shouldn't just be an optional luxury, it should be a fundamental educational right. They recognize that to provide relevant, personalized support to every single student in a crowded classroom, these intelligent tools are an absolute necessity. So all of this forces us to ask one pivotal question. Can technology finally make education truly equal? We have spent decades trying to force incredibly diverse minds into one standardized mold. But what happens when the mold can instantly adapt to the mind?
That brings us to our final section, Section 6, Education for All. The data strongly suggests this adaptability is already changing lives right now. For example, 57% of students who have a personalized schooling project, a PPS, say AI tools already help them understand their lessons so much better. And just look at the Ayana MOOC project from INRIA. By making their online courses deeply, fundamentally accessible, they saw a 16.3% completion rate among disabled learners. That is a third higher than the general average. Plus, 75% of those users reported a profound feeling of autonomy. When you remove the barriers, success rates don't just normalize, they absolutely soar. So, I want to leave you with this final thought today. The potential of artificial intelligence to completely transform special needs education in France is undeniable. But at the end of the day, AI alone is just code, right? Will we pair these incredibly powerful tools with the necessary political will, the funding for teacher training, and the systemic reform required to build a truly inclusive education system? Or will we drag our feet and allow a brand new digital divide to grow? The tools are ready. The students are waiting. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.